Welcome back, everybody. Of course, as promised, we return here with some more championship Overwatch here in the State Division. Of course, it is Central Bucks South versus Westmont Hilltop for our second match of the afternoon. Another situation here where it is our second round here, our quarterfinals. These two teams, Cherry, we're hoping for a bit of a closer match than our previous series.
Yeah, it's one we're going to be definitely, aiming to get more, contesting, more chances given to the team that's a little bit on the back foot. And unfortunately, for the Elizabethtown, they were knocked out of that state bracket. Hopefully we'll see them next year. But now we're going to be seeing which other team will be joining Penn Manor up in the semifinals on the other side of the bracket. So we won't see them facing off until Grands if they make it there. But these are definitely two of the strongest teams we'll be seeing in the bracket. This is going to be Central Bucks versus Westmont Hilltop. Now, these two schools, very, very strong in their own right. This is the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. Central Bucks coming in with that bye on the side of Westmont Hilltop. They did have to take down Twin Valley in a 3-0 fashion. We're not very surprised by that Twin Valley team that, yes, they made it to the last LAN. For, I believe, Rocket League, their Overwatch presence has not been as notable. Now, on the side of Central Bucks, they had a very dominant 3-0 victory over Loyalsock Township, who is currently also playing in the quarterfinals against Reach Cyber. I think Central Bucks, with how dominant their game also looked, we're really looking at them and kind of expecting them to be more towards the favorites. We look towards this team, a lot of notable names, especially when it comes to how dominant they have been in the past 4 years. They definitely do look very, very good. However, the player that I'm definitely going to be looking towards is Arti, who's likely going to be able to put up a similar, position to what we saw from Shunem, where they just completely take down everything, right? When it comes to that hit scan, they're a very notable player.
Yeah, of course, to kick things off, no surprises, we are heading to Ilios for our control map to begin this series here. We just saw a pretty quick 2-0 shutout on Ilios for our previous series, and so we're hoping to see something a little bit more competitive on this one here, as you mentioned. A little bit of jetpack cat shenanigans, though not with a Bastion in that previous series. That was with the Cassidy instead, who can prove to be just as, if not more, lethal in the right hands. So it is down here to the compositional level. We'll see which of these teams want to run out with which compositions to kick things off here. Of course, they each have access to 2 bans per map, so that'll narrow things down as we kick things off. But Central Bucks South and Westmont Hilltop, both of them coming in this. I believe Central Bucks have a single loss there in the regular season, so they are mortal. They can bleed. Westmont Hilltop, though, have been looking pretty dominant all the way through, so as you highlighted here, this is truly a clash of 2 titanic teams here in these quarterfinals.
This one is definitely a little bit farther of a matchup for both these two teams rather than what we saw from our last game, was both teams hailing from, that central Pennsylvania region. This one's going to be a very far east versus far west matchup, right? Central Bucks coming in from that Philly region, Westmont Hilltop coming in from Pittsburgh. Both these two teams, very different sides of the bracket, very different teams they've played throughout the season, but as they are going to be starting to take a bit of a chance against each other, we'll see how that does end up looking, as obviously, you look towards Central Bucks South. They have had multiple appearances within that state championship, not last year. However, you look towards the year before, they were in the state championship against that Penn Manor squad after taking down Ephrata in. Unfortunately, they did fall down. We'll see whether or not they can come back for that Overwatch LAN once more, regain that appearance. Obviously, it is very likely. They have been a very strong team for the past few years. Obviously, Carlisle, though, last year was the team to take them down. And with Carlisle no longer in the bracket, we'll see whether or not Westmont Hilltop will take their place as the ones to take the Titans offline. But as we do look towards the bans, makes a lot of sense. Rags, this Sojourn pick, a staple of Arti's character pool.
You can see already Arti quite displeased. My Soj says, yeah, no chance for that here to kick things off, at least on Ilios. But then it now is in Central Bucks' hands whether they want to ban for their next 2 heroes. The ball up next. Yeah, if you don't want to run into that, I know that Lennon is more than capable of running a crazy wrecking ball here, especially on these control maps in particular. So the second one here for Central Bucks is going to be the Sombra. All right, we are narrowing down the field, and now it's Westmont Hilltop to go ahead with their final ban, and then we kick into the map proper here. We're kind of winnowing things down a little bit here. If we're going to be running dive, it's going to have to be alongside that standard D.Va. The Winston, as we saw briefly in the previous series, not really expected here. D.Va still looking dominant. She saw a very light tap with the nerf bat in the latest patch coming through at the mid-season, but still looking a really comfortable spot here for the metagame overall. The Arti ban as well is really going to narrow things down if you're trying to run that brawl meta. I'm expecting to see some Mauga if that's an angle we want to do. Of course, this could easily just be D.Va v D.Va here for the tank line.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I did not realize that we would be seeing the Central Bucks Orisa as like even a possibility. I didn't think that they were too confident with this. I'm pretty sure both these two teams are very familiar with each other's pools. Obviously, we were looking at that selection. I know Frenchette used to be the tank player. I believe they have swapped that over and given somebody else the reins for it. And I know their character pool used to definitely rely heavily on that D.Va when it came to playing the tank position. So I don't entirely know how this is going to look, but we are going to be getting underway. So it is a similar map to what we saw earlier on as we head to the Ilios to get underway. Okay, so yeah, they do switch Frenchette to the Kiriko, putting them on the support role. The Quickster taking all over the tank spot. And yeah, this Ramatra, it's a very, very lethal pick, especially in the hands of the Quickster. I've felt it a few times while playing the Brig. It is definitely not a character that you can underestimate them on.
No, not at all here. Westmont Hilltop trying to find some positioning on the high side of the objective, but it's going to be Arti first finding the pick onto Moose here. That Echo not finding a ton of skybox vulnerability here, especially into the face of that Emery. Tons of hit scan potential, tons of consistent damage output as it's going to be first cap going the way of Central Bucks, and already powering forward here, trying to catch the retreating members of Westmont Hilltop. It looks as though Tony Zamponi is just going to be able to get away with life intact, but still, you are already in a great position to hold close here. But no, a pick off here into Arti goes a little bit too deep.
Yeah, Westmont Hilltop able to start to regain some pressure, regain some positioning as they're going to have these missiles coming close. And with the point still prolonged, with the Quickster taking full pressure over it, as we are now going to be seeing that Cleanse really able to keep them healthy. Lennon not giving them a single inch. Arti with an early kill into X-Moose FPS once more. They've had their number so far this game, with Arti getting their second kill onto Moose. Westmont, despite these few glimpses from the Central Bucks with an early cap, it is now going to be the point to recapture, looking to equalize that percentage.
Yeah, of course, just looking at the ult charge right now, you're looking at that your supports are going to have such a better time here for Westmont Hilltop. Yeah, that's an early use of that Suzus, so you're going to have to wait a little bit for that to become handy once again. It's down to Moose to find some pressure here onto the backline. Of course, you're counting on that Brig to be able to provide a really good answer to that Tracer harassing your backline. Oh, but not. That's a better answer to get away from the Tracer. Take a dive off the edge. The Annihilation roller from the Quickster is enough to get a quick 2K onto Tony Zamboni and Big Hoss. So Westmont Hilltop reeling here. Yes, they lost their Brig, their main support coming into this fight, but the rest of the team alive and kicking and screaming while they're at it here all over the objective. That's going to be kill after kill falling their way, but not before some extra percentage gain for Westmont Hilltop.
Yeah, loving the point possession Westmont Hilltop brings into this fight, as now we will be seeing the swabs coming out. X-Moose FPS taking their hands off of the Echo, switching over, showing us a Reaper, showing us a Bastion. Not too concerned over what they do end up going for. I think either pick may work, as now the Orbital Ray looking to really raise that pressure, turn it into diamonds, as now the Quickster are going to be put into a rough position, putting the entire kitchen sink onto each and every play on the lobby. The rush, the bomb, everything gets pulled online, as now Westmont Hilltop takes a few kills as the though it is going to be CV South take fight.
Yeah, Lennon able to hold strong in this fight here, but it's not nearly enough to really get anything done once the rest of your team has fallen. Yeah, it was really hard fought from both of these squads here, but just enough ultimates at the end of the day for Central Bucks South to win that one out. Crucially, that Bob was spent at the beginning of the fight here from Brayden, already back to near 50% of this next Bob. Crazy damage throughput here for this long range. Honestly, the Ash has been entirely unbothered this entire time. Moose is playing musical heroes now, trying to find anything that actually makes this composition, this front line work, and I know they've got a great deep hero pool, but when you keep switching up like this, you're not going to have enough ult charge to make things work, and we're heading into final fight territory.
As we are now going to be seeing this Quickster getting completely melted. The cleanse to keep them healthy for the time being. Now pulling out the annihilation. It's going to be a full-on domination as Westmont Hilltop gets put down into the shredder. It's a full team kill. And that is a real good work from the side of CB South to just completely flip that 50% that they did gather and take it to 100.
Every single one of those annihilations from the Quickster was perfectly timed for maximum devastation. Incredible spatial control here, and the rest of the team able to really keep you sustained through that. Counting on your supports to keep you alive. We saw that final fight there when you just had to get back on the point. Take a quick look at the stats here just to tell the tale. Yeah, Quickster did not die. Neither did Frenchet whatsoever that entire time. And the only death that Hop on Pancakes had was that slight dip off the edge of the map there from the brig, just trying to get away from Moose when Moose was still on that tracer. Feels like a lifetime ago here. So really strong stuff from Central Buck South, really proving themselves to be the dominant force coming in here to Ilios. And Westmont Hilltop, look, I have not seen this team on the back foot at all this season, so they're really being put to the test here on Ilios.
It has definitely been a more one-sided game than one would even, you know, expect looking at the seeding, where it's a 3 seed versus the 6 seed. It's a lot more favorable for CB South on paper, but Westmont Hilltop, they're looking very good as now a bit of an engagement comes out. Lennon isolated, however, Xmoose FPS can take offline Brayden. And as Arti alone on the point, and massive cleanse to keep them up, sustained, as now looking to re-approach the targets. You're definitely going to be looking towards Tony Zamboni, the main one to try and fight towards. However, Lennon down at half HP, taking to a sliver as a is just a early kill with your take now gone. Brayden to sweep up the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, Moose playing a very close range Emery here, but now you're just down to that Emery and your support to keep yourself alive in this fight. Yes, you got first control here for Westmont Hilltop. But Central Bucks, I mean, they're just waiting for everyone to get back online. It's just those 3 squishy members left on the objective. You've got to be able to get into that. The second you've got the Quickster back in this fight, who crucially is going to have access to this remech very soon in. But now, you've waited so long here. The Westmont Hilltop have their full roster back once again. And now you're playing from a really strong defensive point here. You can anchor around Lennon's Mauga on the objective here. And you're going to have the override protocol first from Moose, which could easily shut things down. Arti's got to have this one back quickly as well.
Oh, look at Brayden, comes in close and easily sweeps up the kill. As now demeched, Lennon just able to slightly get in. Massive slam! As the looking to sweep the lobby. From Brayden. Fortunately for them, the ultimate likely is unable to.
Now that is a cage fight committed once again. Brayden and Lennon both that copied Mauga here, trying to make things work on the objective, but unfortunately no match for the real thing. As Westmont Hilltop committing in that lengthy engagement, that was really well played by Lennon in particular. They're really able to dive through that stomp, closing things out, taking down Arti in the midst of that override protocol. Couldn't get away nearly enough. The stun, and then of course just locking down that damage so consistently in the later stages of that fight, really keeping Westmont Hilltop in this one. They're not done with this round just yet. Lighthouse could easily go their way if we don't see some strong answers from Central Bucks.
It's definitely not going to be a easy game whatsoever, as we are just going to be getting Westmont Hilltop lurking down in the shadows, 95%, and it does seem like a point is all but taken, as they are going to be able to collect it, and a dominant comeback. Despite getting taken down 100-50 on the first one, they instantly bounced back for an early victory.
Yeah, this is the Westmont Hilltop I'm used to seeing here. I feel like I've just happened to get a lot of their games throughout this season. This is the kind of roster we're expecting from them. I think Moose here on this Emery is a night and day. We saw them chasing the DPS, looking for something, looking for any hero to really latch onto on Ruins, but no, on Lighthouse, it was all Emery to answer in onto Arti, which you kind of need to, right? Arti was uncontested that entire first round of Ruins, and this, we finally start to see the scorecard start to even out here, starting to see some more balance between these two teams. This is the kind of match we've been talking about here, folks. Yes, it was 100-50 on that first round, but now 100-0. Westmont Hilltop very much in control of their own destinies. This Mauga, I think we need to see Quickster here on this Ramatra. The Diva just was not able to hold a candle to the consistent damage that Lennon was able to lead the charge with. And of course, Tony Zamboni on this Genji cannot go counted out.
this point, Lennon still just on this left angle, able to proc the Inspire. Brayden, early pickup as Tony Zamboni will be able to drop their life. And at this point, it is Westmont Hilltop down on the back foot and engaged from Lennon, looking to facilitate the rest of the team marching towards this engagement. But Lennon unable to handle the extreme output of damage Brayden is putting forth.
No, really perfect sustain there from Central Box. Really able to keep alive. Of course, the Suzu there to cleanse off those stomps. At this point here, with all those perks online, Lennon stomps, I believe, are doing full burn damage onto everyone they're able to find. So you need to be able to answer that very quickly, and the consistent healing there with that Brigitte and the Kiriko. I really like this backline. We've been seeing it come up a lot here at all levels of Overwatch. It really provides you a lot of sustain while of course giving you so much consistent healing both at range and close up here, especially with that Inspire proc constantly when you're playing up front with this Ermacho that Quickster has clearly been piloting to great success.
At this point, we've been constantly just seeing Alien Dog being the first one down. It's really just that issue when you're running a backline comparatively to what CB South is going to be putting forth, as now TP already expended. Brayden capitalizes as Big Hoss goes down. From Chet's gonna be the next one to take the Lennon to the chopping block, and CB South just marching to a game 1 victory. We've been seeing this get very close. It's been extremely back and forth. However, towards the end, this is where we're really starting to see CB South coming online.
Yeah, you can see Brayden at the very end just looking for someone to lock down a prospective cage fight, but no. Honestly, the unsung hero so far of this map, really providing so much consistent damage like we highlighted on Ruins, but here on this Echo, we didn't really get to see it pay off on Lighthouse, but here on Well has been unmatched right now. You're counting on both these DPS. You can see Tony Zamboni's already swapped here. This Cassidy, someone needs to be able to shoot down this Echo from above, but already on this Emery, already proving why this is a favored pick. Yes, you don't have access to that Sojourn, but still doing just as well on the slower replacement to Soj in the metagame. Now to 92 and 3%. CBS are about to fully take this one here. Westmont Hilltop, 7% to their name. It's going to be a touch from Moose, but going to pay for it with their life. That's going to be it here, unless anyone else can get there in quick fashion. Lennon touches once again on the Doomfist, but it's just going to be a quick trickle from now. The Annihilation, all these ults still ready to go for Central. Bucks didn't even need them, and despite, you know, losing their footing a little bit on Lighthouse, they will cleanly come back to their feet. They're going to take Ilios here 2-1.
And it is interesting when you kind of consider how they do end up playing this. I wasn't expecting the Emery coming out from Arti. I was expecting either that Bastion Cat, which they did end up playing against Loyal Sock in their spring championship match, or just running the Cassidy. But the Emery really did pay out dividends for this team. It was superb on all aspects, and with the sustainability that they were able to keep up, it did certainly look good. You look towards these stat lines, especially for the side of CB South, just some real dominance being displayed, as you wouldn't expect it from somebody on that hit scan, but Arti just completely outmatching the rest of the lobby in terms of damage. On the other side of things, X-Moose FPS also putting up some real good numbers, but Lennon on top of things with 13k, unfortunately, was not enough to put the team over the line. What I do love is Arti's accuracy, right? They're not afraid to take shots, but despite that, you know, they're still hitting the majority when they are going for them. It is very, very good to see Arti able to put up these numbers. On the other side of things, though, the Quickster as well dominating. We are seeing Shaq and Kobe at work right now between the two of them, and the rest of the team certainly still keeping up the same level of dominance. Look at the 60 assists between their supports. It is very, very proficient work, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, the points themselves were pretty swingy here, but Central Bucks really able to lock things down, and when these teams win, they certainly win big. Honestly, I think it's just a shakeup of the composition, shakeup of your playstyle that kind of throw the opponents for a loop here on these sub-maps, on Ilios in particular. So I'm curious as to where we're going to get sent here for our second map of the series. Westmont Hilltop now have the chance to decide where we're going to decide if we head up 2-0 here and go to match point, or if they even things up here at a 1-1 1-piece series. Of course, folks, this is a first to 3 still, so as long as these teams are still giving as good as they get, this could go all the way, but it's very much now on Westmont Hilltop to find some answers. CB South really proving themselves head and shoulders here. It was 150 on that first point and then just 100 to zeros for these second 2. So of course that does mean that Central Bucks really proving themselves to be in the driver's seat, very much in control of their own fate in this series. And yeah, so we do shake things up a little bit here. We go to hybrid, we go to escort, we go to flashpoint, or our push, whichever one you want to. And these categories could easily change up your track here. Honestly, I think both these teams feel pretty good on control. I wouldn't be surprised if we try and keep these similar compositions rolling on something like a Suravasa on a flashpoint map, but if you really want to slow things down, or at least provide a different compositional angle to it, I recommend going to something like Escort, honestly, maybe even Hybrid. You really want to provide a nice slow point A capture here. Something like Midtown might give you the breathing space you need, but honestly, if I know both these teams, they want to play a fast tempo all the time, so we're going to Flashpoint as expected. It's Atlas for our second map.
Atlas, it's just a map that we're definitely going to be seeing that Ramatra continuing to rain down from CB South. And whether or not Lennon's going to stay on that Mauga to continue trying to play that brawl to just go match them on that DPS output, we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do let that ball through and they're able to maybe get that to work. If you put like Lennon on the ball, give Xmoose FPS the reins on the Tracer, you can possibly try and make something happen. But then when you allow that also does give CB South the opportunity to also try and run the same thing. And if you let Arti to get online on the Tracer, it definitely can become an issue that you definitely don't want to start getting expansive. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm not obviously a genie, but I think when you consider the two teams, I wouldn't be surprised if we will see the exact same comps that we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, I think as long as the bans allow it, no reason to run anything else. I'm sure you're going to want to run the ball here if you are Westmont Hilltop, but we saw that was an initial ban out there for CB South, so I would not be surprised to see that get taken off the field yet again. Of course, not having access to that Sojourn, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day here. Arti still proved to be just as effective on that Emery instead. Of course, the difference between those two tends to be that Sojourn's going to have a little bit more mobility, whereas Emery can often have a little bit more burst potential there, especially when you factor in those grenades. And of course, with that override protocol, such a destructive ultimate there. But as we've seen, can be answered. Is not some immortal sky god there. Bring him down to earth, as we've seen Lennon be able to do on that Mauga. You can find some weak spots here. CB South is not, they're a team that can bleed here. They are certainly fallible, and it's going to be down to Westmont Hilltop to find those weak points there and continue to apply that pressure, because, yeah, you're absolutely right here. This Ramatra composition has yet to be answered out from CB South.
Yeah, I mean, the Quickster is such a good tank player in this league. We very rarely saw them as the first one dead. And when we did even see them die, it was because the whole team died. There's very rare times where CB South had to play a team fight without their tank. It was very good work from the entirety of this roster to keep them sustained, invest enough resources to allow the Quickster to continuously be free to do whatever they were kind of pleasing. And overall, their target priority looked extremely good. They were able to be isolating picks and dominating overall. It really did just look phenomenally from them.
All right, entering into the ban phase, CB South, ban onto the Wrecking Ball. No chance for Lennon to pilot that one here on the second map in a row. Cassidy ban out from Westmont Hilltop. I think this is a good answer as well. I think that was really, if you want to be able to run your flank heroes on your own, you certainly do not need to worry about that Cassidy there. And another ban onto the Orisa yet again. All right, so this really seems to be a very, a very targeted ban out there from Westmont Hilltop. Now for the final ban out from Central Bucks. We'll see which one it comes out to here. Honestly, they're kind of playing with house money. Anything they want to. The Sombra isn't going to really slow you down too much. You might as well just get that out. But nope, it's going to be Sojourn available here. Should Arti wish to continue with that hero. But of course, Emery still looked really solid. And I think Sans the Cassidy, I think Emery's still a really good answer to some of these more mobile picks.
Yeah, I do definitely really appreciate this Emery pick, but overall, just the amount of time we've seen the CB South Arti Sojourn come out, I think that the experience alone, it will give them the comfort to just say, yes, I'm gonna run this. There's been a lot of times, you think back to the what was it? The Loyal Sock scrimmage of 2024. That was definitely one of the more aura-filled times that CB South had with the Sojourn, for those who know. But Westmont Hilltop, right? They've been a team that has consistently been fighting and challenging this CB South team. We already saw them take a 100-0 against them on which one was that? White House. So if they can continue to like show these signs of life, be able to keep Central Bucks on their toes, there's a good chance we'll see some fun contention. And with Arti maybe even having Frenchette to give a pocket, that could really start to put a lot of pain to the Westmont side of things. Look at the early damage though, as the Ravenous Vortex as well as some early pulse sticky bombs do get put on at Westmont Hilltop. The Arti crumbling.
Yeah, look, Braden and Arti, both excellent targets here for Mercy Pocket. You cannot count out either of these DPS players here, so it's just Moose on this venture, looking to hound out anybody on that side of this fight, but you're going to find yourself very alone here when the rest of Central Bucks decide to look your way. That's going to be an early fight win here for CB South. Westmont Hilltop. Look, I understand they want to try and play it into this Ramatra duel, but the Quickster has just been so dominant so far that I honestly would feel very uncomfortable heading into this mirror here, at least on the tank line. I don't know if Lennon's got the chops on this tank in particular, but I fully agree. The Malga was not providing a real answer to this, so I think, yeah, going for the mirror is a choice, is a difficulty, is a try, but it's really not been paying off so far, and you can tell already so much pressure, so much damage coming in. Lennon cannot weather that storm, having to back away with those arms fully raised. Someone is on the objective trying to trickle away, and it looks like the Quickster went a little bit too deep. A little bit of a split division of attention here for Central Bucks. It's going to be point flipped here. You have lost your Ramantra, but nope, you've got Frenchette on this Mercy, able to bring the Ram back into the fight, and a quick focusing beam from Braden. That's going to be a retake here, and on Flashpoint, 23%, that's nothing.
Yeah, at this point, you look towards the ultimate Central Bucks South with the Annihilation online. Really going to be a nice bit of pressure to keep them alive, keep them healthy, as well as just dealing that tertiary pressure to their opponents. X-Moose FPS swapping over to the Tracer. After last game, we didn't really see this involved too often, but this time, maybe you'll be able to get something more. Frenchette really does need to get punished for some of these aggressive angles, but unfortunately, we really haven't been seeing that. Westmont Hilltop, the proficiency has been a little bit on the static end of things, where they haven't been too active about it, and Central Bucks South has been taking advantage. Now, Braden looking to secure the point, as they do take that duplication and turn into the opposing Reaper. However, the lack of target prioritization, okay, they're going to try and get a Death Blossom, not going to be able to make anything happen, and now they get out scot-free. Rags, CB South lost the point, but they are still gathering around extremities.
Yeah, we need to see some punishes. You're absolutely right here. Yes, Big Hoss got an early pick on to Frenchette's Mercy. This is what we're looking for here. Yes, Braden already both taken down here. You're gonna have to force out, make sure no res coming through for Frenchette. Goes for it eventually, but you do lose your other support into the bargain. That's going to be Westmont Hilltop holding down control here on this first point. And honestly, the speed at which these points tick up here on a Flashpoint, on Atlas in particular, there's one more chance. And now that you're down your tank with the Quickster out of this fight, I don't even know if CBS can even have a chance at actually touching the objective now. No, they're just going to keep fighting here on the high ground. The rush comes out. Is anyone on the point? No, they're not. The rush committed. I think that's an overinvestment for Central Bucks.
Absolutely. I don't love that rush commitment by any means. Lennon, Tony Zamboni going to be able to work in unison and sweep away all CB South players. Now going on to the second point. Westmont, they are certainly seemingly able to put up a close game number 2. As we will be seeing the swaps coming out, Frenchette and IHOP and Cake's going to be able to go back to the support comp that they ran in game number 1, diverting away from the Mercy, instead taking back over to the Kiri with Brig combo. Now, obviously, Lennon switching over to the Ramatra might be able to make this a little bit more lethal for the Brig, but I'm not totally sure how that is going to play out. And yeah, that is the case, as IHOP and Cake's just trying to get something through, but that piercing is tight. Oh, Arti can't be getting away with this.
Now, this Sojourn doing so much work. I totally understand why we banned it out here, but Arti back firing on all cylinders and make that a full 150 charge fire at that here. In this, an overclock annihilation committed from Lennon. They're still fighting this one out tooth and nail, taking down 2 for the price of 1 here quickly, dwindling those health pools on the high ground. Still, at this point, it's in Westmont Hilltop's hands. Every bit of percentage, every second they continue this fight here is only in their favor. A late annihilation committed from the Quickster. The second this fight was already lost. Another overcommit for Central Bucks South. They are letting this map get out of their hands here in a quick fashion.
And Rags, this is a tragic team fight for the Central Bucks South roster. As Arti pulled out a miracle few railgun shots as they took 2 kills early on in the engagement. However, with Lennon just so aggressive, harassing the backlines, was able to find out 2 picks, and City South is not able to react to it. Now, we're looking at fight-to-fight territory for the second point, and City South still not able to gather anything, as it's Moose who's also able to get a kill. Puts him down to a pretty quick shot. We are now seeing Lennon rising with them. Gosh, alone on point. The orbital ray looking to secure anything. TP out without a line of sight. Arti now going to be the main target for Moose FPS, able to call them out. However, there is still 2 more players on Westmont Hilltop. The GPS duo themselves. Tones and Boney. X-Moose looking to put away this team fight. Looking to be the shining ray of hope for Westmont Hilltop. Alive, the Ravenous Hydra comes out as well. But unfortunately, the Vortex not able to clean up the kill. Tony Zamboni gets healed up. And another Westmont Hilltop team fight will come off right off the bat.
No, that was well fought out there at the very end by Central Bucks. They honestly won that war of attrition, and it was really, could have gone either way. Those annihilations are at least rolling here early on in that fight, about to have them coming in this next engagement. Quickster looking to find a pickup. It's a massive 3K with the pulse bomb. Moose finds 3, and that is going to be this fight. This point taken care of before it can really go underway. No, Quickster's committing. They're going to keep fighting this one out here on the objective. That's another 2K for this Ramatra, and of course, got a couple kills at the very beginning of that fight, so it is just a trade here. A duel of the Rams on point, and of course, as Lennon wins, as the body of the Quickster falls, there's no one left alive for Central Bucks to even touch, as IHOP Pancakes goes for it. But no, you're met there by the bouncer, and the Reaper says, no, I'm afraid you have to wait in line for the next objective now. We are up 2 for Westmont Hilltop on Atlas here. This could easily go their way and even up the series if we do not see some response from Central Bucks.
The response, it needs to be here and now. 2 ultimates in store for Westmont Hilltop. X-Moose FPS able to prove that this team is able to work with anything and make it shine. As now, a couple more starting to be in congestion, but as we are going to look towards the rally to be a main stake for this team to be able to initiate a fight. We'll see what they do end up opting in for. That could even just be used to try and counteract a Death Blossom that Tony Zamboni does have, as Braden's the first one to fall. Alien Dog at a low HP line, not able to be confirmed. On the other side of things, already late. Fronchette that needed to be so much earlier as they tried to invest that cleanse to get them healthy, but unfortunately the Suzu too late. And CB South, though, despite some errors, they're still able to get to the point, hold this one out for at least a little bit longer. Able to keep the heal alive and get Braden punished. Oh, that's tragic. Now with my health, I basically this whole map figured out, as they have so many people alive, so many people pressuring this point. Central Bucks to get on in the Moose.
Rush, build, and rally all spent here on the objectives. We're dueling this out body for body, but there's just enough bodies left here for the side of Westmont Hilltop. Losing the Quickster is the final nail in the coffin for this fight. All of that, folks, was just here to unlock this initial point capture on Bazaar. So it is going to be Westmont Hilltop find themselves once again in the driver's seat, and crucially, with 3 ults to spare coming this next fight. Central Bucks, they were in that engagement for so long. They spent everything they had to work with, and then some. Braden's gonna have the copy coming in here, but unless you're hoping to build up towards a quick annihilation, it's gonna be really tough to find the value necessary. You might just have to count on an ult building fight for this next one.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been a very, very tragic turn of events since game number 1, as Arti finally gonna be able to shut down X-Moose FPS, having enough of their shenanigans, and with the Quickster as well, able to take down Lennon. Ramatra on Ramatra action will send Central Bucks down to the point, and with 58%, they are going to have to convert a reverse sweep on this flashpoint if they want to be able to go up to match and series point within this quarterfinals. But I think, Rags, this is very possible with how they've been playing.
No, that was a judicious application here of that single ult that Central Bucks had to work with, that copy onto the Ramatra. It doesn't matter whether it was ally or enemy at that point. Annihilation able to weather that storm. Westmont Hilltop now still have more to work with, but crucially, Central Bucks have windowed out a couple of their ultimates here in this last fight, but the Death Blossom from Tony Zamboni finding a pick off early on here onto Frenchette. That is going to lock things down. So yes, the point was flipped. Yes, you've equaled your percentage here, but still, Westmont Hilltop now put themselves, this is going to be final fight territory here. Central Bucks need to find some answers. They're going to have the rush. They're going to have an annihilation, and Arti, I know, can build up towards this this next overclock here, but you need to stay alive long enough to do so. Tony Zamboni and Moose are both looking to assassinate you before this fight can even kick off.
As we do get involved, possibly final fight of the game. Will CB South be able to get the touch? Answer is going to be yes. They invest the rush early on. Brayden instantaneously gets taken down on the May. You cannot be allowing this to happen. And now it's Lennon trying to isolate the kill onto IHOP and Cakes. They're going to be able to make not anything happen. And with Lennon down, the keystone of this team gets eliminated. And Westmont Hilltop will still have another fight. They're not able to close the door just yet.
Now they bought themselves a stay of execution. Once again, that's kind of been the nature of this Suravasa for them so far. Getting Brayden back in the fight here. This May alongside the Ramatra, I think, is a really solid compositional choice. Just allowing a quicker teleport to get Frenchette back into the fight here. I have Pancakes is going to have this rally ready to go in this next fight, of course, alongside that overclock. Crucially, already held on to that coming to this one here. Westmont Hilltop need to build these ults very quickly here. The rush going to be ready for Big Hoss. That is if you stay alive long enough to actually get it. That's a quick kill onto Tony Zamboni and Big Hoss 2 for none here. That's Central Bucks holding strong on the objective here. Bazaar is going to go their way. We are not done with Suravasa just yet. Lennon gets a kill, but it looks as though that's going to be it. A couple here into the bargain as Westmont Hilltop will not go down without a fight, but they just don't have the numbers. They just don't have the position. Another snipe here of those pummels. The Quickster has been leading the charge here and crucial to keep themselves alive here as Atlas is not through just yet.
I mean, the possibilities of a reverse sweep certainly not off the cards. Big Hoss, however, going to look to initiate this next fight with that rush. If they can be able to facilitate the rest of the team onto it, I'm really looking towards Tony Zamboni to be able to use that self-heal, especially to be able to keep themselves sustained. And overall, we've seen Lennon, how dominant they can be on occasion. So now we already see Brayden in the thick of it. With Lennon now trying to get this kill onto Brayden. They have no utility to keep themselves up. On the other side of things, though, X-Moose FPS is going to fall, but the Quick Stir taken aback and taken down. Westmont Hilltop looking to start this point early.
And crucially, they did not spend anything in this fight. It's just an engagement happening on the way to the objective, and they still have 4 ults ready to go coming into this next fight. Central Bucks South, the ones having to re-engage here from a deficit, not just in terms of their ult economy, but also positionally. They're the ones who have to meet Westmont Hilltop on their own turf now. And of course, this Reaper, which turns out to be the perfect swap here from Tony Zamboni, but an early pulse bomb from Moose. Not quite the massive light show the last one was, but still finding the value here that you need to see. Another ult committed, but losing your life in the process here as Brayden commits that blizzard, but is taken down, summarily executed there as just this duo wrecking crew here of Tony Zamboni and Lennon on this front line being so well supported here. This Juno Curie backline, the healing throughput has been insane from Alien Dog and Big Hoss.
Yeah, Westmont Hilltop, they've just been so good so far, and they haven't given a single inch, and it doesn't seem like they will be. It certainly seems on paper like CB South is going to be down for the count in the second map. As we already see Brayden expending so much utility. I think their entire kit just got utilized. Lennon trying to get some damage dealt onto the Quick Stir, but unfortunately nothing to find already. But despite that, the early kills coming out, the late kill feed though, lighting up blue. Lennon looking to keep this one in contention for a little bit longer. But unfortunately, the entire team investing resources just to exhaust all HP out of Westmont Hilltop. And that is a team fight finally to go the way of CB South.
Late annihilation commit there from Lennon. I totally understand the game plan. You'd love to hold on to that for a next fight. The second you see you're down a couple bodies, yes, you go for that ultimate. You want to clean up those kills, but by that point, everyone else from Central Buck South were over on the objective, taking down your remaining squishy members. There was no one for Lennon to actually run back to, and from that point, the rest of the team of Central Buck South opened up their jaws and allowed Lennon to step inside, getting obliterated in the process. So now it is going to be Central Bucks on the defensive side. They got a couple to work with. Make that one less here. There's another pulse bomb. Moose has these every single fight and finds a pick with every single one here on Atlas. The kills still falling on either side, though. We're not done with this fight just yet. Looks as though we've got 3 alive on the point here for Central Bucks and just 2 for Westmont Hilltop. So, but they're running out of time here on this point, and they're staggering out Lennon, stalling the objective. It's going to be so hard for Westmont Hilltop to even touch, let alone get a full team fight.
Wait, but they get another stagger too. If you can get... Oh, okay, all right, that's good. That's good. We'll see Alien Dog being able to get out of the fight. If they died early, that might have just been able to spell out disaster immediately. We're going to be getting the touch from Tony Zamboni that gives a chance. Will X-Moose FPS be able to follow up? Answer's going to be yes as well. But as Alien Dog is going to be the next to fall down, certainly seems like Westmont Hilltop is going to have to retreat and gather up for that final point. Will we see the reverse sweep on this flashpoint? Oh my gosh. I mean, Rags, this certainly seems like this is game.
No, this is absolutely insane here. Central Bucks have really gotten themselves together here, going down 2 and now facing this on the 5th and final of these points on Atlas. It is down to Westmont Hilltop finding some inroads here. Tony Zamboni finding that Reaper just a little bit too vulnerable in the face of that Mei. I agree here. I think this Venture swap is really solid. It can use some good dive. Pincers alongside Moose, of course, who has been so lethal on this Tracer, whether with Pulse Bomb or without. But still, you're facing down the barrel of 3 and some changed ultimates here. You need to go fast, need to go first, and of course Westmont Hilltop are plenty good at that so far. Arti falls early on here. That Overclock's gonna have to wait for a rainier day than this one, or perhaps a chillier one, as the Blizzard committed from Braden on the objective. I don't know if anyone's still left alive within it here, as the point control is still being contested here very hotly. IHOP Pancakes and Alien Dog both taken down as Annihilation is pulled from the Quickster. Lennon holding on to this one here as the fight drags on and on. I hope that we don't spend it. No, crucially saving that for the next engagement, but that turned out to be the ult necessary to turn things in Central Bucks' favor, and they're still coming into this next fight with plenty more in their back pocket.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of that fight from Central Bucks South. I think they played that amazingly. Despite losing Arti early on, such a key player for this team, they were still able to just change the tide. And Westmont Hilltop, despite some changes, we see Tony Zamboni swapping, as you'd mentioned, they're not able to make anything happen. And it just was a very convincing team fight for CB South.
Overclock ready here from Arti if you can just stay alive long enough to utilize it, but once again, it's either one of the two as the first target here as Moose finds a 2K. Quickster falling on the objective. This is disaster for Central Buck South and Westmont Hilltop. Don't spend anything in that fight. A clean disengage here as that railgun shot does mean you're not going to have Lennon here for a little bit longer, and it makes it easier re-engage here for Central Buck South. So that actually might be the thing to provide the tempo for Central Bucks coming into this next fight.
Yeah, phenomenal shot from Arti to the dome. Lennon goes down and they're going to have a difficult time to be able to restage. Obviously, you get a little bit of a boost in speed as that Ramatra, but that does relinquish a couple of your cooldowns as well. Lennon instantly comes back, and it's X-Moose to harass the backlines with them. The Quickster going to be the last one alive with Braden in tow, but unfortunately, they are both going to be conceding their lives. And now as the point does get equalized at 60 apiece, it is Westmont Hilltop to put CB South on final fight territory.
It all comes down to this Central Bucks South. I mean, even if they take this point here, there is still a chance for Westmont Hilltop to fight back into this next fight after that one. Again, that's still a lot of hypotheticals, though, into the future here, Cherry. It's all down to this one. 4 ults ready for Westmont Hilltop, and they have all the positional advantage in the world to work with. Someone needs to touch, someone needs to get on the point, but it's there in time. I can't believe what I'm seeing. No one had the space, no one had the clean distance, and just like that, what turned out, what could have been a phenomenal final effort between these two teams on Atlas, goes the way of the wind here. That's going to be a clean take here. Not quite a reverse sweep on Atlas as we even up the series 1 apiece. Westmont Hilltop are not done with this fight anytime soon.
This has been probably the closest game we will see in the entirety of the PIEA State Championship of the 2025-2026 school year. These two Titans are challenging each other, and they're just facing each other off with so much potency. I'm loving the play we've been seeing so far. Central Bucks South obviously starting off a little bit slow on game number 2, relinquishing point number 1 and point number 2. However, the comeback that they did start to achieve definitely did look good. They started to mount that snowball, but towards the end, we really did just start to see those instrumental plays from a Westmont Hilltop come through, and they start to shine as brightly as we do expect from them.
Yeah, this honestly feels a lot more like the match I was expecting from these two teams here. Yes, we had a couple 100-0s on Ilios, but an Atlas, Flashpoint map going to all 5 points here and still so highly contested. Yes, that is an unfortunate stumble at the end. Not quite enough speed on the roster of Central Bucks South to actually get them back onto the objective. And that fight honestly could have gone either way. Could have easily gone the distance. You kind of favor Westmont Hilltop both playing on the defense and with their ult bank there in a war of attrition. But as we saw throughout the rest of those sub points on Atlas, neither of these teams can be counted out when the chips are down, when the going gets toughest. So I honestly couldn't tell you how that was going to fall, but it doesn't really matter here because all we know is the way it did. Evening up the series here, there's still a chance this could go all the way to 5 maps should these teams be as hotly contested heading in. But now the chance comes to Central Bucks South. They get to decide where this next map is going to be held, what type, and of course which map in particular. And I think the bans here have been instrumental all the way through the series so far. Yes, it's only been 2 maps, but having that ball off the field has necessitated a brawl mirror. And I honestly was a little bit down on Lennon coming into this because of course the quickster on this Ramatra was so dominant on Ilios. But Lennon ended up giving just as good as received there all the way through Atlas. So honestly, if we end up in a brawl mirror for the rest of the series, I could kind of call this either way.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go out and I'm just going to spitball this real quick. So I will say the current PIA map pool doesn't really favor CB South. What they have traditionally liked to play towards is going to be that Circuit Royale. That's pretty consistently been their best map due to those long sightlines where Arti does tend to thrive. But I think what we definitely could be seeing in spite of that is going to be something like a Rialto, like a Havana, where you do still get a little bit on those longer sightlines where you can try and challenge down with those hit scan characters, maybe pull out an Ashe, Widow, try and just run the Cassidy. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of options we could be seeing from CB South, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of those are going to be what they'll end up opting into. I haven't really been seeing a whole ton from them recently. I know Dorado, though, is definitely something that they do, have a little bit of comfort towards taking their opponents to.
Yeah, Dorado feels like the least seen of these escort maps nowadays, but yeah, I fully agree here, Cherry. I think if you want to really get those sight lines in your favor, I think Havana might be the best call there. Points A and C are just a long-range character's paradise, but Rialto, you can easily get a point A hold there if you're just able to control those long sight lines, not only on that initial straightaway into the spawn room, but that first courtyard can easily be taken over here by a solid Ashe or Widowmaker. But the consistent throughput here, I mean, whether it's on the Ashe, whether it's on the Echo here, I really want to highlight Braden in particular on Central Bucks South as being such a really clean, flexible DPS player here. They haven't been talked about as much as the rest of the squad, but especially on that May as well in the latter points of Atlas, really providing tons of value. And I really think that alongside Quickster's Ramatra in particular, can really play spoiler to a lot of these more stationary comps. But no, it's going to be Havana to kick things off for our 3rd map of the series here. No surprises. You highlighted it yourself, Cherry. I think this really suits Central Bucks' play style here. Not a ton of maps in the pool do so, but going to Escort, going to an incredibly long map like Havana here, you would love to get a close hold, right? You could easily, go for a spawn hold to kick things off and still have plenty of time to come back for a hold there on point A.
Yeah, I don't know why I said Dorado, because this is the map I was thinking of. Yeah, Havana, they took Loyal Sock there the other day. I ran the Cat Bastion on it. It worked pretty well for them, as well as that when we saw them last year at that state championship playoff match against Carlisle, they did come to Havana and had a bit of a disappointing fall during it. But I think this is definitely a map that does suit them, right? You look towards the high ground, that's definitely going to be where they're going to like to thrive. And it's definitely just a map, right, where you get those kind of combinations of the second point where you're going to be playing a little bit more close up and personal comparatively to the first and third, which do give you a little bit more towards that horizontal angles, right, where you're really playing far apart from your opponents and just trying to get as much aiming down. And when you look towards the Valorant players on this team, such as Arti and Braden, they're certainly going to love that idea to be able to just let go of the Overwatch in them and start to really just hit that headshot.
Yeah, plenty of room for hero play here on Havana, both on the offense and defensive side of things. But yeah, even with the adjustments to the map that we've seen in the past year or so, still a very defensively favored map here, as a lot of the escort maps kind of tend to be. I think if I am a Westmont Hilltop here, your main goal is to just break through point A. Once you get into point B there, and you can fight things off in the more closed off, enclosed spaces that heading into the distillery phase provides you. That's kind of when your comp can really have its time to shine here. Not to say they cannot win out in these long-range duels, but I don't really favor them so much here. I think when we've seen them light things up, when we've seen them really come into their own power, it's been in these duels. It's been when they sort of bring everybody down into the muck with them, and they can just power through sheer force of will here, through sheer attrition in these fights. It's only been occasionally that Central Bucks have been able to rise above that. And again, I think as long as this Ramatra is in the pool, I think we can still expect to see that here from the Quickster. Yes, this is a map where often you're going to see something like a Sigma, of course, does have a lot of access to that poke, but honestly, Ramatra still has that capability as well. Honestly, the secondary poke tank here, and of course, giving you that option to work in the brawl as well when things come down to it. So yeah, as long as Ram is in and not banned out, honestly, there's no reason to swap from it.
Yeah, I think realistically, the Ram ban is going to be very unlikely. More realistically, we're likely going to be seeing that Sojourn taken off the board and maybe something like the Brig, if you really were finding issues with it, but I don't think they were. I think Lennon was able to really get a good understanding of how to challenge that, and overall just started working into every flaw that we did see CB South allowing. And so when you're able to punish as well as we saw Lennon doing, there's a good chance that they'll just be able to run away with this game. So as we do head underway, we're going to be able to get our bans now down, and we'll see what these two teams are going to end up opting for.
Yeah, first ban going the way of Westmont Hilltop, the Sojourn ban. Once again, no real surprises and no prizes for guessing there. Arti, of course, going to have to opt into something longer range, or honestly, even back to the Emery. I think that's still a really solid pick here. The Wrecking Ball ban, once again, expect that kind of every map here for this series, folks. So as we head in for the second ban of Central Bucks, whichever way you want to take this, kind of wide open here. Those are clearly the two greatest nuisances that you're seeing so far, as well as the Sombra, just really determined not to run into that coming in here. I've seen Moose play a little bit of that Sombra heading in throughout the course of this season. So if it's not the Tracer, I think the Sombra could easily play greater spoiler to your compositions.
Yeah, I think Moose and Tony Zamboni, I could be wrong on that one, have both been at least a little bit interested in the Sombra in previous iterations of their composition. But one of the things definitely to note about this Westmont Hilltop roster is they're definitely not afraid to flex to different positions, right? Whenever they feel like they have a game in the bag, they do traditionally start to put like Moose on tank, maybe Lennon on DPS, maybe Lennon on support. They always do like to kind of switch things up, and obviously that is a way to approach a team. I think CB South, though, definitely is a different approach where they do try and have those specific roles. You're very rarely going to be seeing a player like Quickster or Arti swapping off of that DPS and tank roles respectively. However, as we do get on involved, right, Braden going to stick on to the Ash, Arti to the Emery. It's a very similar composition to what we had seen in game number 1. The only real difference is going to be that support line, where we're seeing a complete 180 off of that Kiriko Brig, now taking a much more sustainable approach to that Baptiste as well as an Ana. A lot more output focused team where you're going to be really just looking to keep the Quickster up and healthy rather than kind of being able to more so play for utility stop dives. And I think that's a good way to approach this. As you understand Westmont Hilltop, it's going to be very unlikely they're going to go for anything that really does require that Brig's attention.
Yeah, I mean, Westmont Hilltop here for their DPS line. This is full damage. This is all the consistent damage coming out here from the Sierra. And of course, at long range, those icicles can easily dome somebody. There's no fall, well, not a great deal of fall off, at least with those, and can honestly provide so much consistent pick potential here with this composition. Lennon finding a Ravenous Vortex kill onto Brayden first. And we can see is already back on this Ashe strong pick on the first map, which feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but we're only on map 3 here, folks. And it is going to be holding here on this initial corner. That first hold didn't really come to fruition here. It doesn't really seem as though Westmont Hilltop want to play into that sort of initial spawn hold at the gate. Gives them a lot more room to work with, a lot more long sight lines here on this initial straightaway. But a sleep on to Lennon is going to provide a big opening here for Central Bucks South. It is going to be Quickster falling forward, already taking down Lennon here. That's exactly the value you're hoping to see from these Anas. Havana turns out to be such a stomping ground for these long-range, slower supports, and that's another clean kill. Central Bucks South rolling into point A.
You know, I've been saying it for a while, and I think I'm going to continue to assume this until I can really get proven wrong. Until there's a team that does have that, like, super good team cohesion, that synergy, that ability to play at high level for all 5 players, I think that double flex support is always just going to be the best option for these Scholastic teams. And I do love that both are going to adopt that identity coming into game number 3, as it's just such a good way to be able to make sure your tank stays healthy, as well as being able to make sure you really don't need to constantly change how you're investing your resources.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of raw healing output there, Bab and Kiriko both do so much in just raw numbers here. But of course, having these anti-nades, as we're seeing already, Tony Zamboni and Moose both having to back off for a hot second here. And you can see, even with this engagement here on that Sierra, still under a lot of pressure, having to back all the way off here, as it is going to be Arti both looking down the barrel of having their ult online here in just a second. Moose goes through with that turret form for just a moment there. That cleanse necessary, keeping Lennon and Moose back in this fight here. As we can see, so much value out of these anti-nades, but this cart has still been free, pushing here halfway through point B already, and no sense of stopping just yet. Tony Zamboni pick off onto Arti. That could be the opening defense I've been looking for.
That was a nasty cleanse off of an even better anti-nade, but as I hop in, Cake's just going to be able to shut down the first as Tony Zamboni goes down. The Quickster, they do have that Annihilation online, going to first look to proactively utilize as much utility as possible, and they might not even need to utilize any more ults as they've already expended, as the Quickster will mow down the entirety of this Westmont Hilltop roster. Now we look towards this next team fight. This is going to be do or die. If you can shut down a Big Hoss early on, which they will, that puts them into a 4v5. No chances to touch, and they're going to have to concede a significant amount of this first or this third checkpoint as well. Now that Big Hoss does go down, they're going to swap it up though. Heading up onto the Juno, it's a new pickup as well as X-Moose FPS, who's going to take a bit of a longer range approach.
Nearly 5 minutes coming into point C for the offense. That is a massive time bank here. Havana is not a map you see finished all that often here, certainly at this level of play. Honestly, really good use of these nanos from both of these Anas onto these Ramachos respectively, really allowing both Lennon, but more effectively there, the Quickster, to really lock down those objectives. And of course, into that Annihilation, that's a 1-2 punch akin to a primaling Winston that, of course, Westmont Hilltop are really just not able to stand up against here. The Bob Cutter from Brayden into this choke point runs all the way into the spawn room, and Overt Protocol as well, high in the skybox. Arti trying to take advantage of this chaos, as you can see that Hanzo just trying to find some escape route, but there is, of course, no escape from an Overwatch Protocol. Still such a strong ultimate here. Unless you're finding that damage, that consistent hit scan, there's very little you can do, and Arti has been piloting this hero to perfection all series long.
Yeah, I think you just look towards Arti and expect greatness. Consistent damage has been found. Lennon now having this Annihilation in hand. Gonna have a few more ultimates to work with, possibly, as we might even see the rush coming online before this end fight. Lennon will find one, but instantaneously Arti bounces back, secures the elimination. Tony Zamboni for one of their own. X-Moose FPS looking to put a little bit of pressure onto their opponent, but as neither tanks do survive. Nice anti-nade, connects onto 2, but instantly there's no follow-up.
Yeah, finally a chance to breathe here for Westmont Hilltop. The defense, it feels like they have been doing nothing but backpedaling this entire map so far. So a chance to regroup, recontest, and they're going to have Lennon swap over to this Diva. A strong choice here, I think, honestly, on point C in particular. The Brawl is not as necessary to sort of maintain that mirror, and of course the Quickster. Honestly, it's weird because I think Lennon's had their best options here in that Ramatra mirror, but I fully agree that if you need to be everywhere at once here, the Ramatra is not going to be able to hold down that high ground the same effectiveness you'd love to see, especially if you see another Override Protocol coming out here or facing down the barrel of that Bob. There's only so much Ramatra can do against that overwhelming throughput of damage.
2.5 minutes remaining on the clock. CB South on the cusp of a win to put them onto series point, and after there is going to be matching ultimates on both sides, the kill feed starting to light up blue as there is a multitude of kills going their way, and the Quicksters Annihilation taken offline, taking down the Alien Dog, and X-Boost FPS going to be the next to follow in suit. Nobody left standing. Touch comes through from Big Haws, but they won't even be able to take the touch. And 2 minutes and 1 second as the Central Buck South Titans will put themselves up. And at this point, it certainly seems like they're going to be going up to series point. Westmont, they're going to need an absolute turn of events to be able to take this one equalized.
Yeah, that was a commanding offense here from Central Buck South, really proving their mettle and really indicating why they brought us here to Havana in the first place. It does not matter where you are in this map, having the Quickster on this Ramatra, whether you're poking at range or, of course, brawling up close and personal, and, of course, being helped out by those nano boosts, by those bionades, those sleeps here onto Lennon. It feels like Lennon spent so much of that time on defense just kind of napping on the job. It's really been the case that IHOP Pancakes has been laying through with those. So much consistent utility. I think you highlighted it best here, Cherry. This double flex support for both these rosters really coming alive here, but especially for Central Buck South. The BAP and the Ana, so much consistent healing and utility here. That immortality field clenching up these fight wins here more times than not. And of course, a window at the late stage of that game, especially as you're pushing into or defending point C, could easily buy you another 30 seconds off the clock. But now it's on to Westmont Hilltop to figure out how they want to approach things. And right now, it looks like a very different approach. Of course, still a few seconds left to finalize their team choices here. But Lennon on this Zarya, and of course, Tony Zamboni's Reaper, potential teleport as well.
Yeah, the Symmetra could definitely start to throw a wrench in the plans of Central Buck South. However, for the time being, they've already been able to discover its existence, I believe, and it doesn't seem like they're really going to have any crazy TPs. They might try and do it top right to try and get a little bit of high ground, maybe put it towards where that Ana is going to be located. But they're not taking any opposite avenues. They're just going straight through this main choke point, utilizing the car as cover. But Big Haws already taken down, definitely rough. As the Zarya bubble comes up onto Tony Zamboni, they're going to be forced away off of a Wraith. Unfortunately, now for the side of Central Buck South, the high ground is getting contested. Arti, though, still on the flip side, going to be able to take down Lennon, who has a little bit of an unawareness of their current location. Westmont, they're able to fight, but unfortunately not well enough. CB South still wins up on the team fight.
Lennon look a little bit lost there. Of course, teleporting to the high ground, kind of wondering where the rest of the team is. Tony Zamboni finding a little bit of revenge for the fallen tank, but that's small potatoes compared to the state of the payload right now, considering you haven't even gotten around this initial corner. Still plenty of room for CB South to operate around. And yes, Braden and Arti, this double hit scan and DPS line, you've got to dislodge them. Finally force them down to low ground is an excellent start here, but Westmont Hilltop, they really want to play up close and personal. This range can only suit the defensive side of things right now. Big Haws under a bit of pressure, has to back up, get healed up by Alien Dog here. Lennon's not really been able to find a whole ton of value. You can see only 30% towards this grab, whereas on the other side of things, Quickster about to have Annihilation ready to go, and already shutting down Tony Zamboni once again. The dives from this Reaper have not been nearly as clean, as stealthy as you'd like to think. Very telegraphed, especially alongside these Zarya bubbles, and that's already half the time bank essentially burned off the clock here.
It is unfortunate, but at this point, Tony Zamboni and Lennon both opting away from the idea of combining the Reaper with the Zarya bubbles to gather up some percentages, gather up some just general steam. And at this point, we swap over to that more towards the longer range combination with that Soldier 76 now being in place, as well as the Ramatra getting taken onto the mix, and we'll see what that will end up looking like. A lot of crosshairs starting to get more preoccupied with the Tracer in the backline, but as we will be seeing ult for ult, it is going to be that Bob for the rush, and as Big Haas now down, Lennon as well. CV South does not care about your rush. They don't care about your swaps. They're going to still take this point and run with it.
Yeah, Red Protocol there just to clean things up. Honestly, yes, it's an investment of 2 ultimates for 1, but I think it was necessary, right? You could still keep fighting that out there for Westmont Hilltop if you were not worried about that damage from the sky there. Arti shutting things down, and you still have 3 ults to work with here. The swaps coming through from Westmont Hilltop mean that they're way behind here in terms of ult generations. We're heading into the final minute of this push. Yes, you're finding a little bit of car progress, but Central Buck South, all they need to do is just back around some of this environmental safety that they've got for them here, whether that's on the high ground or the low. Ravenous Vortex is the nemesis of Big Haas, no pun intended there, as the Quickster still has the Annihilation ready to go, and we're just losing bodies left and right here. Westmont Hilltop sticking around in these fights longer than they have any business doing so. You're not even disengaging here cleanly, as Central Bucks just piling forward there over their opposition. The Pulse Bomb from Moose only finds the Immortality Field again. That's the value the Bat brings to the table.
I would have liked to see Tony Zamponi possibly go for some high ground during that play rather than just trying to sit behind Lennon, because it allowed the Quickster to just capitalize on their positioning, and being out of place like that definitely is something that you're not going to go... It's not going to go unnoticed when you're playing against a team of this caliber, the Quickster. And at this point, Lennon now going to be the next one down, as Franchette's going to just put the brakes on to the side of Westmont Hilltop. And now going up to series point after such a masterclass performance from the Titans. Westmont Hilltop now going to have to come back, win 2 in a row. We'll see if they can do it, but it is definitely going to be a difficult turn of events.
Our first 2 maps very hotly contested, but here in the third, the first one, it really feels as though Central Buck South are firmly in control of their own destinies. It's lights out, no repeat performances here, a full hold after a full cap with time in the bank. Westmont Hilltop well and truly dusted on Havana. Central Buck South really feeling themselves there. Havana was their pick. We'd highlighted coming into that map that it was kind of one of their obvious go-tos for this escort map to really take the series into their own hands, get some control of their fate once again. And yeah, Suravasa could easily have ended up in a win for them if they'd gotten the chance to get that touch and won that final fight. Of course, it's a bit of hypothetical, it's a bit of shoulda, coulda, woulda, but it's not nearly enough to guarantee you. All to say, this could have been a 3-0 victory here had that final fight gone their way on Atlas. So it really has to be said that Westmont Hilltop having the early control on that Flashpoint map has paid off massively here. They're still alive after all. The match is ongoing, but that does mean, as you highlighted, Cherry, we are on series point now. It is to Westmont Hilltop once again to choose where we head, but this will determine their fate. Will they stay alive in the series? Will they force a map 5, or is this going to be where their season ends?
I think there's definitely a world we could be seeing this going to map 5, but honestly, with how the Central Buck South High School has been starting to just outperform their opposition, I definitely need to see a lot more from them, right? Westmont, I want to see a little bit more, I guess, team cohesion. We didn't really get a whole ton of that in this last game. And if you can start to play more towards the approach that they had during game number 2, that definitely does start to, I guess, change, in my mind, how the rest of the series will play out. If they can take this to game 5, great. If you do have to bow out here, that definitely is unfortunate. But these players, I don't believe there's a single senior on this roster. So that does definitely mean, in my mind, that this team is going to come back better than ever next year. As obviously, you look towards Central Buck South, the captain will be graduating after the spring. Arti no longer going to be a part of the team. I assume a few other players as well are going to be out. But obviously, they had a very good run, and they're going to look for a championship. And when you look towards how they're playing now, it definitely seems like that is going to be in the realm of possibilities. Penn Manor definitely going to be on the other side. Then we saw them earlier on the broadcast, a team that is very likely to be in that championship. And whether or not Central Buck South will be the ones to meet them there for that rematch, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be determined here on Hollywood. We head into our 4th map of the series here. Westmont Hilltop, second choice. I'm curious if this is going to favor them more than their opposition. Plenty of long sight lines here, kind of through all 3 points. Yes, things do sort of bottleneck a little bit as we head into the third and final point, point C, but between points A and B, there's still tons of high ground, tons of long range hold potential for both these teams. As we've seen, though, clearly demonstrated on Havana, that really sort of favors Central Bucks here, just on a pure, geographical level. So I'm really curious what Westmont Hilltop's answers are going to be, whether it's a massive change in composition or if they feel like they're finally going to pull the ripcord on some of these bans that might end up being a little bit more necessary. Yes, it's been consistently, it feels like it's been the same 4 heroes banned out all series long here, but I think you're facing down the barrel of a potential loss here. You need to take some of these high impact tools out of your opponent's hands, and honestly, if you do not find some answers here and now, that's going to be it. You need to find something that's going to change things up. Business as usual is not going to keep you alive in this series.
I gotta say, though, I do like this pick from the side of Westmont Hilltop. This has been a map that they've definitely had the majority of their reps on in terms of hybrid picks. Hollywood has been one of their more favorable maps that they have tended to lean towards in these map pools, especially when it does get to Game 4s, Game 5s. I believe they took this against Elizabethtown a few months ago. It was during the 2025 championship, I believe. There was something like that where they went to this map and they did some crazy tech. I forget if it was with the Symmetra or the May or what they were ending up opting into. Obviously, they were, at least to a certain extent, comfortable with both characters. We saw, I believe it was Tony Zamboni trying their hand at the May earlier on in the last map, and unfortunately did end up falling short of expectations, what we would have hoped for. But if they can start to really change up how they are going to approach on this map, utilize that strat book, try and find a way into the game, maybe we'll be seeing Game 5 coming up shortly.
Yeah, time will tell. We need some answers, but I think you're absolutely right here. This is not doom and gloom for Westmont Hilltop. They have decided we're heading here, and as you hinted here, Cherry, this could easily be a turnaround map for them. Obviously, it needs to be, but it has had some historical significance for this team here, and I have no doubt they can provide these compositional change-ups, or at least these positional adjustments they need to make. They've proven that they're more than happy to go toe-to-toe in this Ramatra mirror, but they also have been favoring running something else here. We saw Lennon opt into that Diva on the latter stages of their defense on Havana. Anything else to sort of, lean away from that duel when it becomes necessary. Because yes, the cards can kind of fall on either side for these two Ramatras, but the Quickster has been the one who's really been leading the charge here, the one who seems most comfortable on that particular hero pick, which is why we would not going to see a ban here onto the Ramatra. It's just such a comfort pick for so many of these tanks, and it would be a massive blow here to Central Buck South if we saw the ban coming out, but it doesn't seem very likely, especially considering that Westmont Hilltop like to run it themselves here when needs must. So it's going to be the first ban to Central Bucks to kick things off here. Yeah, 2 for each team. Once again, the ball. I feel we're going to see the same 4 bans here if it's not the Sojourn and the Sombra and the Orisa. That would not shock me in the slightest. It's going to be the first one from Westmont Hilltop up next, and that is naturally the Sojourn. Yep, no surprises.
Please ban the Ram. Please ban the Ram. Don't give them the Ram. I mean, if you do ban the Ram, we're likely going to be seeing the Quickster just swapping over to something like the Winston, like the Hazard. But please ban the Ram. No! Glad they did ban the Ram. But they did start to, at least to a certain extent, take down Arti's hero pool. What Arti is going to opt in for now is a little bit of a curiosity in my mind. They could honestly just try and run full dive. I mean, yes, that does take a lot of team cohesion to pull off, and it is more likely that they will just try and continue with the current state of things that they have been opting in towards, which has just been looking to play consistent brawl. But I think that they have the players to make a brawl work, right? Because you can put French out on that Brig, you can run the Kiriko as well, and then maybe just have, like, put the Quickster on something like a Winston, put something maybe like a Tracer with Arti. I know that used to be his choice of character back in the day, and then recently, once he started being really that kind of keystone of the team, who was just kind of consistently putting up damage on the hit scan, started to fall out of favor with it. But I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he does keep up on that. But with the lack of a Sombra ban, we are going to be seeing Xmoose FPS instantaneously opting in for Westmont Hilltop, going to be swapping over Lennon to the Winston, as well as Alien Dog continuing. We saw a little bit of a sign of this in map number 1 when we were on Ilios, but they're going to pull it out once more, the Life Weaver to come out. On the other side of things, though, they are just going to run that double hit scan. Arti on the cast, he makes a lot of sense. Braden as well with that Ashe. They were superb with this Ashe. I think we saw them with like a 43% accuracy in the last map. It was a very, very dominant position to be at. Frenchette taken up onto the Baptiste, putting IHOP and Cakes to the Brig. We'll see what this does look like, but at this point, Rags, I'm saying this is either team's game, but I like Central Bucks comp more into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time Quixer's been allowed to play this Orisa all series long here, so we'll see if that's another level. But that quick hack here from Moose, I know how good they are with this hero in particular. And I have Pancakes, I mean, so often the first target of a dive here from the side of Westmont Hilltop. And so this time is no different. So the wraparound from the Quickster is good, takes down Tony Zamboni, but not enough to keep the rest of the team alive. It's still alive, though. As long as Orisa is left kicking around here on the objective, you still cannot count out Central Bucks South, but Westmont Hilltop seem to have all the positioning in the world, and crucially a shorter run back at this point in time here. I hope Pancakes has gotten back in this engagement. Alongside that Orisa, that's enough staying power to dislodge Westmont Hilltop. 1 tick is all they'll get here for their first minute of play.
Well, you gotta imagine that they're gonna be happy with that 1 tick, though. It should put them in high spirits, and whether or not they'll be able to continue putting up these quick 1 ticks, and we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Xmoose FPS starting up on the Sombra was a pick that CB South had such a scared time playing into it, as they banned it 3 games in a row, and now in game number 4, they will finally be able to pick this one up, as Xmoose FPS is waiting for Lennon to initiate a dive, going to go for it here and now, as now staging up towards the high ground. Xmoose FPS not going to be able to spot out anybody instantaneously, but as the Brig now starts to engage, it's going to be the CB South to instantly push them to the grave.
You know what? Good for IHOP Pancakes getting the drop on the dive hero for once in this series. Finally getting wise to Moose and Tony Zamboni's ways here. The Genji as well alongside the Sombra. Yes, in theory, that could certainly pay off, but you're a long way behind here in terms of ult charge. And Central Bucks South, this double hit scan of their DPS line has really been able to spoil a lot of these dive approaches, whether it's the Winston or Moose getting found out here more times than not at this point. And that's another Javelin sectioning Alien Dog off on the rest of the roster here. You are down your main source of healing. It is just Big Hoss left alive, and a Terra Surge from the top ropes. That is a clean team kill here. That 1 tick is starting to look pretty aspirational here for Westmont Hilltop.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like there was just that sign of life. CB South unexpecting the Sombra maybe, but as soon as they are able to understand the composition, Westmont is trying to run into this. They're going to instantly deal the damage. Lennon, you can't just dive like that. You don't have the double flex support anymore. You swap to the Lucio. There is no longer full sustainability. And Westmont Hilltop is going to drop forward as Arti just puts them in the highlight montage.
Arti just Control-Alt-deleted Lennon's health pool there, just on that approach. That single dive, you watch that Winston go from full to nothing. And a late javelin stagger kill, rather, onto Moose. Westmont Hilltop reeling once again. They made some swaps again here, but we're down to the final minute of their offense. And despite Lennon here on this Orisa, you're nowhere close to having an ult online. Tony Zamboni praying for a Hail Mary here with the Widow pick, but there's still ults rolling for Central Bucks.
And there's definitely going to be a major rejuvenation. Braden with an early pick due to the bomb. Tony Zamboni, nice shot to take down Braden. I'm loving it, as now already isolated and done for. Westmont Hilltop, phenomenal fight. Can they conclude this nicely? There's only 2 players remaining, both supports, but as Tony Zamboni drops another player to the grave, they've been an absolutely crucial person into this lobby. And as the Quick Surge is trying to make anything happen with his utility, they're starting to isolate Tony Zamboni. That's going to be able to get away with another one, as the Quick Surge looking to halt the brakes and shut down the Westmont Hilltop squad, as the Terra Surge will be able to deal some damage. However, with the fortification online, it won't be able to completely secure the kill onto Lennon. However, that one will. They put him to the grave, and the Titans will take down Westmont Hilltop, send them to, at the bare minimum, be able to take a tie.
Well, roughly a week later, Cherry, we're done with that final fight here in Westmont Hilltop. Not really able to find much more than that, 46% on the board for them, so that's not nothing. But considering that the vast majority of that percentage was gained on your very first fight with the surprise factor of the Sombra composition, it's pretty close to nothing here. Yes, that's a win condition, or at the very least here, a draw condition, or rather, no, win condition here on the defense if they're able to get a full hold, but that's a pretty tall order here considering Central Bucks looked so solid all the way through on that defense, only falling down there in that first fight, and just occasionally that final fight, the surprise factor of that Widowmaker answering back and taking down both the DPS players from Central Bucks gave them the best shot they had. They got a few more percentage points, I believe 10 more on the board, but still not nearly enough to full cap and continue on this map. So either way, folks, we are not seeing anything more than point A here on Hollywood to kick things off. The numbers, look, the numbers tell the story here in no small fashion. Central Bucks South just looking really solid here. There we go. That's the direction I expected those to fall in. So yeah, the Quickster, it's so much work being done. No deaths whatsoever here. That Orisa, honestly, the Ramatra feels like it was playing second fiddle all series long, and we're finally seeing the Quickster. I'm finally understanding exactly why that Orisa ban was de rigueur coming into the previous 3 maps in this series. No, don't do it to him.
I just want to point out that between Arti and the Quickster, they have more kills than the other team has deaths. So these two have certainly been looking very, very dominant today. This has been a higher caliber performance than what we've seen from these two in possibly the entire season. And the support, the DPS line, everything about CB South is looking at championship winning level. And so whether or not they're going to be able to do that, we'll have to wait and see. But with the current state of things, it certainly seems like at least the quarterfinals will be cleared. Lennon down to a minimalized HP line. Tony Zamboni going to be able to put up some numbers, looking down a kill. But as the Quickster, Brayden, both working in unison, we will be starting to get some kind of comeback as now the fortification onto the point. Lennon trying to prioritize them, and it will be paying out dividends. However, as Arti comes straight on back into the fray, takes 2, looking for a 3rd. And they will be able to collect Westmont Hilltop, getting shut down, put into the grave, and it's CB South to head to the semifinals.
A hard-fought series here from Westmont Hilltop. They gave nearly as good as they got, but the final 2 maps in this series were lights-out performance here for Central Bucks South. Feels like that war of attrition really favored the team in blue this series all the way through. They were just waiting to unleash a further level of power here. The Orisa really providing to be that leading charge. The Battle Cattle from the Quickster, honestly, looking even better than that Ramatra did all series long. Really incredible numbers here. Only a single death for more than half of the roster here on Hollywood for Central Bucks South. Westmont Hilltop, look, it was a really tough one here. You took us to your best shot coming in to Hollywood, your best chance at keeping things alive in this postseason match, and you can bow out with grace here. That was a very hard-fought series between Ilios and Suravasa. Those were super close. Either one of those maps could have gone either way. We could have been looking at a 2-2 scoreline right now, but the way the cards fell, Central Bucks South getting stronger as we went on. Westmont Hilltop can bow out with grace as they look forward to the next season of play.
Yeah, CB South, I mean, a championship win, even though in the fall, spring, or state championship, it has eluded them for so long. But at this point, this is like the second strongest iteration of this roster I think I've ever seen. And we're talking all 4 years of high school that I've been in watching this league grow and this team grow. And so far, they are looking exponentially better than I could have expected coming into the school year. Obviously, you look towards last year, they bowed out in, I believe, the fall season to CB West in that grand final in the fall season, then went on to Elite Division, had a very tough showing playing against a lot of high caliber teams. And so it was a very rough year for them last year. Now this year, they came in, took a fall championship, I believe, took a spring championship, definitely, and now they're coming up to states, and they've been looking so good. And I think, you look at this team, you look at who their next opponent's going to be. I mean, Reach Cyber, Loyalsock Township, I've heard from a few teams Reach Cyber is looking extremely good this year. They have a few Masters players who are really going to be looking to tear up the lobby against Central Bucks South if they do end up playing them. I for sure could see that ensuing, and I'd like to see that game on stream for sure, because that's definitely going to be a banger. But over over that, I mean, if you're CB South, I bet this is definitely just going to be, like a stepping stone for them, right? This is definitely not the end of their hopes. This is not the end of their limitations either. They're definitely going to be a team we're going to be expecting a lot from.
We'll have to see further down the line. That'll be next week here on TEC. But folks, thank you so much for joining us for today's matches. We've had one go pretty quick and this one going nearly the distance here. Hard fought on both counts. That is going to do it for us, at least for today. But don't worry, we are still in the midst of postseason. Plenty more to come down the line. So of course, stay tuned. Turn on those notifications. We will see